Greetings! Today we're going to be looking at the history of the French Revolution, a very important part of both European and world history. So let's begin with the fact that the word story is part of the word history, and so whenever we begin investigating a particular part of human history, we need to ask ourselves the question, what story are we trying to tell? So, in order to understand the story of the French Revolution, we have to get into the spirit of the time. What was it like to be alive during this period? Well, the French Revolution is very important in understanding the history of the world because it led to the spread of democracy across the entire globe. Also, we need to acknowledge when this story takes place. It takes place in the 1700s. Before this time, the world was a very different place, and it looked very, very interesting. This was, in fact, what the estate system of the 1700s looked like in France. Its political order, if you will. Right at the top of this political order, you have the first estate. The first estate being the royalty and the clergy, which is to say the church people. They paid no taxes but existed right at the top of society. Then, on the second level of the social structure, we have the second estate, a little less important than the people right at the top, but still very, very important, and people with power and influence, and they also paid no taxes. The people who paid the taxes were the people like you and me, the people right at the bottom of the social ladder. And this included most of the French population who worked incredibly hard, but didn't actually make it very far in life and couldn't climb the social ladder, and this upset them tremendously. And this is what led to the French Revolution, because people had no power, they simply had to obey their rulers. This is also taking place in the time period in history known as the Enlightenment, because during this time, we the people, that's you and me, started to think for ourselves more than ever before in human history. We wanted to reclaim our freedom and our rights and actually have some kind of say in how society works. That was what the spirit of the time of the French Revolution was actually about. It was also preceded historically by the American Revolution, which came just before the French Revolution and influenced it in very, very important ways. It became a model, a role model for the French. The French Revolution started with the lively and optimistic spirit of '89, which was liberty, equality, and fraternity, brotherhood, humanity standing together for a just cause. That was the idea of the spirit of '89. There was also the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen in 1789, which is a very important year for the French Revolution. It is the year in which the French Revolution actually started. And this declaration gave more people more rights and more freedoms and said, we the people want to decide how our government is run. However, the course of the French Revolution eventually turned towards the famous, or infamous, we might say very terrible, Reign of Terror, which began in 1793 under the leadership of Robespierre, and this turned into a very, very violent affair indeed. Let's have a look at some of the consequences of the French Revolution now so that we can understand what impact it had on the world and on our lives today. Democracy and the spirit of freedom was spread across the world in many different countries. Also, there were some negative effects. This French Revolution also showed us how political revolutions can easily turn to very dangerous and extreme forms of violence. And this is something that we obviously have to try to avoid in engaging in some kind of revolution. However, for the most part, there are a lot of effects that are positive, because it showed people that they had the power to stand up and fight against the leaders in power, and this was very, very important. It is a spirit that we see today every time we see a protest march, or we see people reacting against the policies of their government. This is very much in keeping with the spirit of the French Revolution. So we might say that the spirit of the French Revolution lives on today.